Hello, Doctor Who fans across the Whoniverse. Welcome to another Who Corner to Corner podcast. Oh, yes, you heard it right. A Who Corner to Corner podcast with both of us here, actually. My name is Paul, obviously, and I'm with Jeff. Jeff, you did our previous episode without me, which is fine because I've been recovering from a really horrible cold. But that was fun to listen to. Did you enjoy it?
Yes, I did. Yeah, it was really good talking.
That's fine.
Katie.
So you enjoyed it without me, though? Is that what you're saying, basically?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, that's
you
fine.
Were
I totally understand.
Being Bob Fleming.
Yep. There's been a lot of that.
Falcon classics.
No idea what you're talking about. Yes, I do.
Well,
obviously, I do. Charlie Higson's lovely character from the Fast Show. Coughing Bob. Coughing Bob. Coughing Bob. There might be a bit of that going on. But I do have my lovely cup of tea in my Doctor Who mug, which is full of tea, which, as you know, is the best thing for you. But I'm also dosed up on Benylin and paracetamol and goodness knows what else, so it's going to be fun. Anyway, what are we doing today, Jeff?
We're going to have a look at the Visitation.
The Visitation. Yeah. The Visitation. I don't know if that's right or not. Yeah. I don't know what it is.
A commentary on it.
Le commentaire de Visitation.
And why are we doing so many commentaries at the moment, Paul?
Because we're looking for content.
Because there's naff all else to talk about.
There's been very little Doctor Who on in the last few months, and we've done some celebrity interviews. We've done a few more of those.
Well, we've done a few, but we had a great run through the Chibnall era, didn't we?
Yes, where people were happy to speak to us.
Yeah, and now
seem a little less inclined to do so.
Yeah, you send out an email. And the tumbleweeds roll by.
Oh, God bless. Yeah, it's always worth a try. Keep at it, Jeff. That's all I say.
Well, yes, it is. But I find it interesting.
He finds it interesting.
I find it interesting. Yes.
But obviously, you know what I really enjoyed recently was our very own original 13th Doctor Who drama, penned by your good self, Mr. Jeff.
Yes.
Not the Pandora. I keep calling it the Pandora Chronicles. It's the Dark Hill Mystery. Should have called it the Pandora Chronicles.
Yeah,
that would have been brilliant. That would have been amazing. Honestly.
Yeah.
We'd have tons of listeners.
The Dark Hill Mystery, Part 1.
Part 1. Are we going to see Part 2 soon? I know you've written it.
I need to send you the script so you can do your lines.
Yes, all I want to know is there a bigger part for me, frankly?
Yes.
Good man, that's the kind of answer my agent likes to hear. Should we crack on with the Visitation?
Yes, let's do this. Right, on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, not that. No.
That was really poor.
Load up the Visitation if you want to
load it
listen
up on
along.
Your iPlay, your DVD, your Blu. I think it is out on Blu-ray, isn't it? Yes, it is. It's season 19 collection.
Yeah. So here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, I love the Starfield. Who doesn't like the Starfield, Jeff?
Yeah, I do like this.
It's lovely. And then we get that kind of louvy face of Peter Davison's Doctor sort of looming in with all the beige pizzazz and everything. I don't know if that's an actual word, pizzazz, but if it isn't, it should be.
It's a step up from pizzazz.
The Doctor Who logo in neon, 1980s neon with the spangly effects. There we go. The Visitation by one of my favourite writers of the 80s. Yes, I said it. It's Eric Sayward. I do like Eric's stuff, and this is his first contribution to Doctor Who, and apparently he wrote it to his brief, but it was kind of half remembered from it's based on what he half remembered from the old series. He hadn't really watched it very much during the 70s. He was too busy writing plays for radio and dramas for radio and stuff like that. So, it's this is his first Doctor Who, relatively blood-free, I think, if memory serves. When was the last time you watched this, Jeff? Was it a while ago?
It was a while ago. I've seen this a couple of times.
Have you?
Yeah, I really
She looks
liked
like
this.
Lady Painfort, doesn't she, from Silver Nemesis there? Anyway, sorry, go on.
Yeah, I really like this serial.
Is it one of your faves?
Yeah, I think it is, really. I quite like the, taking a historical event and, fictionalising the cause of it a little bit, with an alien involvement. And let's be honest, the Terileptils are pretty cool, aren't they?
Well, I remember them as being mostly made of latex and rubber.
Yeah.
Let's see if they still hold up to our standards of cool. I'm not going to lie, actually. When I first saw this, when it first went out, I wasn't massively impressed by it. I don't know why, actually, because the story is really
your
good.
Doctor.
Pardon?
Peter's your Doctor.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean to say I love everything that he does, mate. I said to you, for me, it's like every story exists on its own. You know what I mean? Just because Peter Davison's the Doctor in it doesn't mean to say I'm automatically going to love every single story. So this was one that I found back in the day. I found it a little bit slow. I was never really into costume drama and all that sort of stuff. And this setting for me, this opening where it seems to go on forever in an oldie, 16th, 17th century house, I just found really boring. And I'm not going to lie, I'm finding it quite short to get through just now, actually, because nothing's happening. We've seen a shooting star in the night. We've seen an alien thing opening, and now I just want everybody to suffer a horrific death at the hands of invading alien monsters or whatever. So, all this COD kind of dialogue is a little bit much. I feel. Codpiece.
Yeah.
Codpiece face. Would you call me Codpiece face? Would you call me Codpiece face?
See that cod piece at the back of your wardrobe? That's you.
See, look, he's still polishing his weapon. Look at that. It goes on a while, doesn't it? Will you have a posset, Master Charles? No, thank you. Good night, sir. Good night, Ralph. Sorry, I'm watching this without the sound, actually, so you can kind of invent your own voices to the subtitles, which I think is quite good fun. Well, oh no, poor Ralph, he throws his tea tray down the stairs only to get zapped by a green laser. Now things are getting interesting. Now it's time to perk up a tad.
What's your attention span? It's only taken 3 minutes to get here.
3 minutes.
You've had a spaceship crash. You've had an alien ship
What's he doing with that poker?
You've had something. When I saw they loaded guns back
there. Yeah, but the
they?
Doctor's not in it yet. Where's the Doctor? I want to see the Doctor and Tegan and Nyssa and what have you. Yeah, but watch out for those things. Fire and brimstone. Apparently, according to the subtitles, we get horse-laboured breathing here. This presumably is the Terileptil. Dear. It's
down.
What was that?
What's your view on subtitles?
Camera dives into the floor. Sorry, say again?
What's your view on subtitles? They are obviously very useful if you need them, but I wish the people that did them would perhaps time them a bit better or think about what they're writing. So, for example, sometimes you get dialogue come up early that spoils something that's going to happen.
You do.
Or,
yes.
Gunshot noises and then, someone's dead and you think, you could have timed it better.
He could have done, could have put a bit more work into it.
Yeah, my wife often has them on, because my wife often has them on because of her hearing.
Oh, look, there's the Doctor. Nearly 5 minutes into the story. There he is, he appears. Sorry, you were saying about your wife.
And the subtitles often sort of spoil what's going to happen next because of their timing.
They do that, they do. Yeah, sometimes, especially in competitions where the winner is...
No,
I'll tell you on the subtitles.
I watched something little recently, and it was ahead of what was happening. And also, some of them are ridiculous as well, like that one there, horse-laboured breathing.
Yeah, I kind of like that. We got this this meme now, haven't we, where it's like a suspenseful music plays or something like that, which I think is brilliant. I want that on my tombstone. Suspenseful music plays, sonorous music or something. Now, just on this TARDIS scene here, because now
Doctor Who music from the 60s would have been random electronic beeps play.
No, it wouldn't. No. You clearly don't know your Doctor Who music from the 60s. Maybe sometime in the 70s, in the early 70s, possibly. Just a word on this this TARDIS sequence here, right? This because this is quite fun now. This what we're seeing here is a reference to the earlier story Kinder, right? So there's an idea that it kind of picks up where that one left off, or there's a recognition at least that there have been other stories just prior to the start and to the commencement of this one. This was something that kind of typified, I think, Eric Saywood's or ran through Eric Saywood's tenure as Doctor Who's script editor, which he wasn't at this particular point in time. He wasn't the script editor just yet. That was that title was given to a BBC intern called Anthony Roots, who came in on a placement during the previous season and did a bit of work on some scripts. So Eric Saywood is yet to be script editor, but obviously when he did, he seemed quite keen on making sure that the stories kind of linked from one to another. So with this one, he'd already written the script, and he then went back and kind of just did a little bit of editing to make it segue into from Kinder, whatever the wording is. I'm not feeling very well, so my words are all over the place. And of course, what we have throughout this series is this kind of narrative arc, sort of, this narrative driver of returning Tegan to Heathrow Airport. And she thinks she's almost there, hence the reason she's dressing up in her purple stewardess outfit.
Yeah, I quite like that. They've added a connection to Kinder, and that often they were just the adventure started, and that was it, wasn't it?
Just
so
get
it's quite
straight
nice
into it.
yeah, and then I mean in the modern series, it's sometimes there's a continuation from the previous one, or a lead in from one to the next, and then other times it just starts straight. I quite like there being gaps like for Big Finish. There's so many kind
Big
of
Finish
gaps
will find
between
gaps anyway. They'll find gaps within stories, and it's the right thing. They're not going to let a mere continuity issue get in the way of their tons of stories.
Yeah, but I quite like both. Knowing they're referencing this, and this has obviously happened, and as well as it just being a cold in.
And of course, they've arrived at Heathrow. Brilliant, well done, Doctor. Just a few hundred years too early, so it's still woodland. There was a point there. Adric is the one who told her that. Seemed to take great pleasure in it as well. It just announcing that you're too early. Oh dear, bless him, Adric. He's not long for this series at this point, is he?
Do you think that was always the plan for him, or do you think that was because of the response to him?
I don't know. No, I mean, don't forget. There wasn't a massive online response to
true.
things as you get. It's just a few people writing in some rather poorly produced fanzines and what have you. And it tended to be the same voices over and over saying they didn't like stuff that they were allegedly fans of. So I don't know. I think it probably was, but
what's the saying?
I don't know.
Things change but stay the same.
There you go. But the TARDIS crew, I mean, this is the first time we've had 3 companions in the TARDIS since Hartnell's days. And arguably, there's a lot of them. It's a crowded TARDIS, right? Does the story carry 3 companions plus the Doctor plus all the other cast as well? In the previous story to this one, Kinder, obviously, Nyssa was effectively written out of it. She fell asleep in episode 1 and didn't wake up till the end of episode 4. So she wasn't really part of that. And, it allowed the story to focus mostly on Tegan. And then the Doctor and Adric were kind of paired up together through their part of the story. And that works really nicely. I think, what would Nyssa have done? She could have been filled by one of the other parts, perhaps Nerys Hughes' part, but it's always a trick, I think, for a writer to get enough for all the characters to do. But I think this one, actually, I think it gives them all enough, I think, if memory serves. I can't remember any real sort of parts where it feels too much.
Do you think the TARDIS gets too crowded with 4 people?
I think there's a danger of it. I don't. I think it depends what you do with them. I mean, recently in Jodie's era, we had 3 companions, and that seemed to work all right. For the most part, there was enough for them all to kind of go on. You can have nice little pairings. The Doctor and Yaz was very different to the Doctor and Graham, or the Doctor and Ryan, and then you get Graham and Yaz together, or Graham and Ryan together, and each one of those little relationships gave, was slightly different, because that's how things are in real life, and all 3 of them had a nice kind of had their own story, and how they interplayed with each other was kind of cool. But for the most part, Adric, Nyssa, and Tegan are written to a much shallower character brief, I think. Than
there's not really any arcs or anything, is there?
So, mate, I mean, you could argue that Tegan has something of a character development, perhaps. She goes from being really bolshy to really bolshy. I don't know. Perhaps by the time we finish up with her in season 21, she's mellowed slightly. I don't know. Interesting, isn't it? Because she goes away and comes back, doesn't she? You know, at the end of this series, at the end of Time Flight, she actually leaves the Doctor and stays behind on Earth. Then the Doctor and Nyssa go away and have lots of adventures. And then when they come back the following season in Arc of Infinity, Tegan rejoins the TARDIS crew. And that's a great story because at the end of that, the Doctor's face is just, oh, great. You know what I mean? Tegan's back.
Was there any reason why Janet left?
She didn't leave. She didn't leave. It was just the story. It was just the story device, really. She left at the end of Time Flight, at the end of this season.
Yeah.
But she was back in the first episode of the next season.
Oh,
so
right,
narratively she leaves the TARDIS,
right.
but actually,
I was going to say I didn't remember her not
continue through. I don't know if there was an option on her contract to finish up at the end of season 19, and whether it was in discussions before season 20 started. I'm not entirely sure, but. Fact fans out there, no doubt you can furnish us with some of the backstory on that.
I quite like the sort of idea that they've landed here too early, and Gatwick isn't there yet, and
Heathrow,
and it's interesting to sort of think of what places would have looked like centuries ago before we. Do you ever see those pictures of now and then of your town, and stuff like that? I always found that quite interesting.
Yeah. So this character is Richard Mace, isn't he? He's a thespian with a rich, plummy voice, played by Michael Robbins, who used to be in a couple of ITV sitcoms, Bless His House and On the Buses, I do believe.
Yeah.
And apparently, John Nathan Turner had to tell him off for changing his lines.
Really?
The actor, the character would never say that, and John Nathan Turner's like, well, you're the actor, speak the lines. The writer gets paid to write, you don't, kind of thing. Which I kind of respect that,
Yeah, I think I think when you've got a script in place, obviously, which you would do most of the time,
you'd hope so.
Yeah, you need to go with the lines because obviously it's all planned like that and things work together and then there's nothing wrong with a bit of ad-libbing, but I think that shouldn't be the priority.
It shouldn't be the norm, should it? I don't think.
and imagine the problems it causes the other cast, but imagine if you learn the lines as per the script and yours and everyone else's, and then someone goes off script and ad libs, and it throws you completely. And then also in the edit, when you've got multiple different things to use, which is quite nice in a way, but then it can also cause problems there.
Indeed, it can. And also, this character Richard Mace, I believe, had appeared in some of Saywood's radio plays, at least a couple of them. So it was a character that he kind of reused and sort of adapted. I think it was kind of like a Sherlock Holmes, sort of late 19th century, early 20th century detective, as well as being a stage actor. He was also a detective, and there was a couple of adventures featuring him. It wasn't the same actor, but the character was, had the same name, was again a stage actor with a side hustle. So Saywood kind of reused or pulled from that to create this character Richard Mason here. And I must admit, again, when I first watched this story, I must admit, part one I was really bored waiting for something to happen. There's not much. There's a lot of talking. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
I must
very
say
flat.
it's taking a while to kind of get going now, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've seen the ship crash and the robot and some nice point of view shots and stuff like that. But now we're just sort of wandering around in barns,
waiting for the monster to appear.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had a scuffle, haven't we, with some local yokels.
Yeah.
But not much action apart from that. I mean, to be honest, I don't necessarily, and even back then, I wasn't necessarily always watching Doctor Who for the action or the monster or something like that. Just something interesting. The story before that, so Kinder, where I remember being absolutely mesmerised by that story from the off. It was just so weird and nightmarish and unsettling and intriguing. and lots of stuff in the dialogue that tended to hint at more stuff going on, and this doesn't have any of that. This is a very, very linear, very straightforward. It's probably one of the most traditional, inverted quotation fingers, Doctor Who stories that you find in the Davison era. I think it's, you could take this story and transplant it to almost any other Doctor Who time and place. It could be a third Doctor story, a first Doctor story, a sixth, a 10th probably. Do you know what I mean? It just fills the template, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just find it a little bit dull at the moment anyway. I don't know who these people are or why they're sort of running around after the Doctor with flintlocks and things, particularly. The dialogue is very good. It's very fruity, especially
megalomania.
Yeah, especially Mace's dialogue. Saywood's clearly enjoying writing for him.
So, tell us a bit about Saywood and what others he worked on, and a bit about his legacy on the show.
It's an interesting legacy, isn't it? Because he was he kind of believed, I believe he believed in the truth or veracity or verisimilitude of things like violence. For example, believing that if you were going to portray violence on screen, it should be done in as realistic a way as possible, as befits the time slot and the tone of the show and everything else. But I think it did kind of bite him in the ass in the end. He does have a bit of a reputation for being quite nasty in some of his stories. Obviously, the story which followed this is an absolute favourite of mine. The story he wrote following this, which was Earthshock, when he was script editor, I believe. That's an absolute out-and-out classic. The Return of the Cybermen, the sad demise of poor Adric. God bless his little gold star. That's had a bit of a legacy and kind of ongoing shadow that was cast over all of the Davison era from that moment onwards, and even to the present day, really. It was referenced in Power of the Doctor, wasn't it? The Doctor and Tegan talking about Adric and what their time meant to each other. And Adric was there. His death hit them both hard. So I like that. That was that's purely a Saywood thing. It was the first time we'd seen a main companion of the character a main companion character killed in the show since probably Hartnell's days. So it wasn't something that happened often. Of course, in the Moffat era, it happened pretty much every week.
And then was immediately undone
exactly.
again. As well.
But it really packed a punch. But that's not this story, so that's to come. I mean, and then of course, Saywood being script editor throughout the rest of the Davison's years, throughout all of Collins' years, but then sadly left the show under a bit of a cloud. Fell out big time with J&T, got the lawyers in, and it all got a bit nasty, and obviously handed everything over to Andrew Cartmel. And sort of, he kind of left the show. Didn't really seem to want to have anything to do with it for some years. And he's still the other thing of Saywood's legacy, if you like. I think also, which doesn't tend to get talked about often, is his novelizations. His novelization of the Visitation is again quite straightforward, as probably befits the story. But he later novelized the Twin Dilemma and his own radio story Slipback, which was shown in the hiatus between season 22 and 23. I believe, and those are very tonally different. They're almost like something that Douglas Adams might have written. There's a lot of humour. There's a wonderful world building element to all of his books, and actually this story as well, which comes up a bit later on. So that's another thing that Saywood's really good at as well. He's a big fan of Robert Holmes' Doctor Who stories, and he was really keen to get Robert Holmes back in the show, back writing for the show, which was something apparently John Nathan Turner didn't quite want, because John wanted a lot of new writers. He wanted new voices, new stories. Didn't necessarily want to keep harking back into this series as past. So, interesting times.
Do you think that the show should have new writers to it, or do you
absolutely.
think it should be, using, reusing people who've already worked on it, and what's your view on fans running it
That's a lot of questions there, Mr. Jeff.
Yes.
Good Lord, there's a whole can of worms to open up. All right, first part of that, should we have new writers? Yes, absolutely. Should we use old writers? Why not? You know, I would be of the opinion that it all depends on the story you want to tell and their ability to write it, and is it written brilliantly, and can we tell this story? You know, do we want to tell this story? So I think yeah, you know, both of those things really. But I think Doctor Who and pretty much any TV show needs new vision, new writers, new blood, new perspectives, new ideas. You know, it cannot always just continually hark back to what used to be done, you know, to what it used to be like. Nice to kind of draw on a few things every now and then, just for the fans perhaps, or, you know, as a bit of a nostalgia fest. But if that becomes the aim of the show, all it's going to do is turn around and look back in on itself. And that is not good, I don't feel, for something like Doctor Who. It needs to be always pushing forward. I think the other part of that, what was the other part you said?
Well, you know, should a fan run it?
Should a fan run it? Well, it depends on the fan, doesn't it? You know, whether they're actually capable of running it. So Russell T Davies is a fan. Chris Chibnall, Stephen Moffat. You know, they're all fans of the show, but they're also very capable of running a TV show of this magnitude and complexity, and writing the stories and pulling in the writers and being the authority for the show. So I think, absolutely. If I was to do it, it'd be an absolute.
That's the thing.
It'd be a very different story if I was doing it as a fan. I'll tell you now, mate. We'd absolutely no experience of running a TV show or anything at all. You know, but it'd be a lot of fun. That's for sure.
You could do Chris Chibnall's showrunner course and get some skills.
Yeah, I'm up for that, mate. Yeah.
Right. This one is finished. So should we load up part 2?
Episode 1 is finished. Yes, indeed. Right.
Okay. I've just loaded it up. Tell me when you've got it.
Hold your horses, governor. You might have to edit out some of these coughs. Right. Okay. I've got it.
All right. 1, 2, 3. I think that the show shouldn't have to be run by a fan.
No.
I think, you know, you need a good showrunner, and I think, you know, sometimes you see people saying, oh, you know, so-and-so shouldn't be writing for this because they've never written Doctor Who before.
I don't think that matters.
If we use that logic, then how's anyone ever going to write for it? Because, you know...
Well, exactly. Eric Saywood had never written Doctor Who before. You know, before Robert Holmes wrote for Doctor Who, he'd never written for Doctor Who before.
You know,
Terrance Dicks, all of those people.
It's like this thing of, you know, the actors playing the Doctor need to have watched, you know, everything prior to taking on the role. Well, you know, the joke is, well, you know, William Hartnell didn't watch everything before then.
No,
but,
exactly.
you know, Matt Smith didn't watch everything and wasn't a fan of the show before he started. And, you know, he didn't get any grief over that, you know. I think that, you know, the show could benefit from a not as I say, a non-fan, and I don't mean someone, you know, that intrinsically dislikes the show or something, but they are coming at it slightly differently and wanting to, you know, play in that sandbox and develop it and tell stories, etc. But they're not beholden to feeling like, oh, I need to get, you know, this reference in and that reference in and things like that.
Quite right,
you know. And nostalgia is fun, I think, and I like you know, a little reference and stuff. But I do worry that there's, you know, an over reliance on it all over the place today. You know.
Yeah, there does seem to be a swing towards that in a lot of TV shows, doesn't it?
You know, it's a bit like I watched Alien Romulus recently.
Oh, well done.
Know, it was fine,
up to a
but
point.
You know, I was like, did we really need that film? And you know, I just watched the Batman over the weekend.
Oh,
with the
I watched it as well.
One.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was good. I started out better, and by the end, I was a bit like, kind of over this. And I'm not really a big DC fan anyway. But I was thinking about, I was thinking about all the different actors who've played Batman, and you know how we keep going back to it, and we didn't long have Superman, and now he's coming back again, and a different actor, and you know, and with the MCU, and I love that, but Robert Downey's coming back to play Doctor Doom. That's interesting. That's cool. But now Chris Evans is coming back, and a lot of the time with things like this, for me, I worry it's going to undo what went before. So Chris Evans was fantastic as Captain America. He had a great arc and a great ending to it. Then he came back to play Johnny Storm again, and it was really funny, and it was a bit raucous, and excellent. And he subverted the expectation that he was cameoing as Cap again. But now, if he comes back again, what does he do? If he plays Steve Rogers, I don't. Will it just undo everything? I don't think we need to see Steve Rogers again. If he plays Johnny Storm again, where you're just undoing the great that he just did with that for to make it more. And if he plays a variation of Steve Rogers or Captain America,
what's the point of that?
What's the point? And now Hayley Atwell's coming back, and the only way
I saw that one.
That's justifiable for me is if Captain Carter becomes real. Live action, not animated. The version that's in the What If series. And I just worry that it's going to just implode on itself in fan pleasing stuff, and to cater to the audience who think it hasn't been the same since Endgame. And I have the same problem. Well, obviously I have faith in Kevin Feige, and obviously none of that's happened yet. But I had the problem with. Going back to the 14th Doctor and Donna, it was, for me, a big step backwards for the show. And, I don't think we shouldn't have done that.
I see exactly where you're coming from, and I think a lot of it I would agree with. I think maybe that was perhaps... I think they just about got away with it on account of it being a 60th anniversary series of celebrity stories. Kind of. I mean, the stories themselves weren't particularly celebrity, other than the fact that they reunited a very popular TARDIS team from a few years back.
Well, I mean, my view there is that Star Beast was fine. My kids really enjoyed it. It was good fun. Wild Blue Yonder was really good, and the giggle was okay. But out of 3 episodes. I think if we'd had a whole, I might have said this before, if we'd had a whole 8 or 10 episodes, Wild Blue Yonder would have been the equivalent of Blink or Turn Left, or do you know what I mean? So, but in a 3 episode run, it was quite a dark episode to put in there. It was brilliant, but I was a bit like, remember my kids saying, "Oh, can we watch Doctor Who this week?" And I was thinking,
it wasn't exactly a romp. Was it?
No, exactly. You're going to be bored. You're going to probably be a bit scared, and not in a good way.
A bit freaked out by the whole thing.
It's a bit much, I think. And I felt personally, when you get the 60th, we should celebrate the whole show, not just a very, very, very specific era. And again, it felt to me, we've got to go back to what is the most popular thing, and I like looking forward. I like moving forward. I'm not against going back and stuff, but there's got to be a limit and a good reason for it. Yeah. And that wasn't a good reason.
No, there you go. Well done for squeezing that in. But I think there's...
sorry.
Sorry. Well, do you know, I think it's kind of relevant to this story in a way, because I think one of the issues that seemed to dog these stories in the 80s, not necessarily these stories in season 19, or at least not the first half of it, but increasingly the fans seem to have more of an influence in the show. One nameless voice in particular, I'm not going to name him because he just annoys the fuck out of me, but you know who I'm talking about, right? Who somehow inveigled his way into some of the decisions that were being made as a continuity advisor, so someone who would say, well, the Cybermen never did that back in 1966, they actually did this, but to such a degree whereby actually that voice became destructive for the show. The 1980s Doctor Who in certain ways became so fixated on its past, it found it very difficult to escape it. And I'm thinking of stories like Attack of the Cybermen, for example, Resurrection of the Daleks, stuff like that. Again, Saywood penned stories, oddly enough, that are kind of just so heavy on Doctor Who's past and getting the continuity right, being fan-pleasing in some way, that the story itself suffers big time.
I mean, I wonder if like there's an argument to say. So, for example, people would say, "Oh, with the MCU, you know, this film doesn't work as a jumping on point." Well, for whichever film it might be, I would argue that most of the films are sufficiently standalone with threads to the other wider world. But after 30 odd films and 15 years or whatever, you know, you should be able to make something that doesn't have to cater for first time viewers all the time. Do you know what I mean? Because otherwise it can't really progress on that way. But I think that I don't know where I was going with this.
I don't know. I'm just wondering what relevance it has to Doctor Who or the Visitation.
Well, nothing really. We're talking about
look, this
other
is
stuff
the
now.
Terileptils now. They're in it.
Yes,
suddenly
they've
the
been
monster
teasingly glimpsed.
We're in a greenlit lab that was accessed by a secret door disguised as a wall.
Look at him.
He's nasty, isn't he? He's been burned a bit. Now, in the novelisation to this, talking about world building, Eric Saywood threads throughout a lot of this, the reason why the Terileptils are here. You know, they're a bunch of villains. They've been working the Tinclavit mines of Raga or something. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of it, and it's good stuff. You know, there's a solidity to these guys. You know, they're not just evil for the sake of it. There's a reason they're here, and there's a reason that, you know, for why they're doing what they do. And I think that mostly comes across in the TV, you know, in the TV episodes that we're watching. But in the book, there's a lot more to it. You know, for example, why is half his face scarred there? You know, that's a really nice detail. It's not just a horrific looking monster. He's made more horrific because half his face is missing. It's been burned away or something. So that again, you know, why did that happen? How did it happen? You know, what was going on with these guys before they came to Earth? You know, it's there's lots of nice little details like that just kind of build on the idea of these guys as a credible alien species or a family or a group or a gang. You know, they're kind of gangsters, aren't they? They're villains even within the Terileptils, I believe. So this is quite nice. You didn't often see that in Doctor Who, to be fair, so it was good. So I think by this point in episode 2, my interest is kind of stepping up a bit. You know what I mean? We've got an interesting monster, we've got some drama, we've got some clever stuff going on, and also about the monster as well, because we didn't make a note of it, but we probably should have done that. Android, the Harlequin, bejeweled
really cool.
android with the diamonds, gorgeous. There's a few lines in here about the Terileptils enjoying, you know, their art. You know, they design things not just to be functional, but to be aesthetically pleasing also. And you know, that android is a really good example of that. You know, it's a beautiful looking android. It's got some art as well as function built into it. So that's a nice touch.
Yeah, he is really good design on him.
And also the disguise being the kind of deaths, you know, the stalking figure of death with the scythe. You know, very, very powerful, potent symbolism in this era of Earth's history. Any era of Earth's history, but I think particularly in this one where, you know, witchcraft and, you know, the devil and everything else is kind of on people's tongues and in the forefront of people's minds. Yeah,
I wonder if should check the years, but further up the country, Witchfinders is happening around now.
I think it is Jacobean times, isn't it? So James the First.
Yeah. I think too much nostalgia is not a good thing.
No,
it's a fine line.
It is a very fine line.
Yeah, I do think that there's a lot. Everything is kind of looking backwards, and you know, video games are remasters of old games, and you know, we just remasters
we got Witcher 4 coming out soon. That looks good.
I saw that. Yeah, I've never played any of them, but
you should.
I tried watching the show, and it was okay. But yeah, maybe I might try the game. I will need something new to play at some point once I finish Avatar.
Well, you could try Witcher 3. That's a good one to start with. It's pretty good, even by today's standards. It's still a really good RPG. Anyway, what do you make of this set, Mr. Jeff? The Terileptil escape ship thing. There's not many shadows in there, is there?
No, I mean it's a bit of green light in an attempt to do something with it. It's a bit. It feels like well, I suppose I don't know what you'd have for a ship like that, but bearing in mind what they look like, the ship is very industrial and sort of clinical looking, and it doesn't visually fit to me.
Interesting.
If you think about like the the alien ship or what they do to ships, with all the mucus or whatever it is that they put everywhere, makes it look a bit more organic, and I think might have been interesting if they'd had a ship a bit like that. But then you can't have every creature have a ship that looks a bit like them.
No, I always think it's kind of standard BBC future. Let's build something that looks a little bit like an alien spaceship based out of what we've got. But saying that, there is some design going into it. There's some thought going into the angles of the walls. Some of the Louvre patterns, the lighting and stuff like that. I think it's a good point, actually. It doesn't look like a Terileptil environment, does it? It's not a very reptilian kind of it's not a Zygon ship where it's all kind of organic. But then, does it have to be? I don't know.
Yeah, the London sets, the houses, I think are probably accurate and probably better.
Ish, possibly. Yeah, maybe. And different lighting there as well, isn't there? They're much more moodily lit on location than these studio sets seem to be. I quite like the contrast though between that and the sterility of this environment. I think it helps sell the alienness a little bit more, perhaps.
Yeah.
It's that juxtaposition of a sort of medieval country woodland versus a high-tech spaceship buried in the ground.
Yeah, it's heightening that difference, isn't it? Where do they film this, by the way? Do you know?
It was in some woods.
Village. Some woods.
It was in some woods. No, apparently it was outside Pinewood Studios, a whole wooded area, the forestry, where they did a whole bunch of Hammer films and stuff as well. So it had been well used as a TV/movie recording place. See, this is interesting, right? When we're talking about too many characters, they got Tegan and Adric locked up for a fair chunk of this episode, having a little bit of banter between themselves as they try to find ways to escape their internment.
Yeah, it's a bit like you were saying in Kinder with Nyssa being sort of sidelined slightly. It's
sidelined completely.
Kept them in it.
So Richard Mace is a highwayman as well as an actor. I mean, it's kind of crazy, isn't it? Really, he's pretty deadly with a pair of flintlocks.
Imagine if he held you up and then they were like, "We saw you on stage last night. We know who you are."
And they're not loaded either,
mask,
so they're there just for effect. His guns.
What's the 12th Doctor story with where Me is a highway woman? What's that one called?
The woman who lived.
Yeah.
Is that the girl who's one of those? It's one of those stories, isn't it?
The woman who lived and then died and then lived again in the same episode.
And actually went on to live forever, actually.
Yeah.
So, yeah. We don't need to talk about that, do we? We don't need to talk about that. We should probably watch that, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, that painting was a bit rough there.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah, we could cover a 12th Doctor story.
We haven't done one for a little while, have we?
Well, we've done two that you dislike, Kill the Moon and Sleep No More.
Oh, yeah. Well, now that those are out the way and done with, we can do one that I do like.
What would you go for?
I don't know. Well, we did the Return of Doctor Mysterio, didn't we? We sort of covered that in one of our chats. Generally, because that's what I like. There are a lot of stories in.
Yeah, we did.
Is it series 10, isn't it?
Imagine if they were called
Capaldi's last one.
This is series
Yeah, in Terileptil speak.
We've got our robot commentary with our duo to come soon, haven't we?
We do, yeah.
When we finish the second
Robots.
half of that. So when I was in London last year, I was at the Gunpowder Plot immersive event, which is near the Tower of London. Yeah, it was really good, yeah. And then we were walking back and past Pudding Lane.
Oh.
And around that time, my son had done Grade 5 London at school. So I took a picture of the Pudding Lane sign, and I was thinking, I wonder if that's the actual street, lane where it all happened, and obviously the building's not the same, whether it's moved or
burnt down.
Well, yeah, burnt down. But sometimes they might, move a street. In fact, I'm going to look it up quickly.
I think there is a little plaque or something.
There was
this
a
is
plaque,
kind of where it was, isn't it? Obviously it's completely rebuilt since then, but
it's a small street in London.
But nonetheless. So this is quite nice as well, actually. The sort of build up to all of that. The fact we've got rats in the Terileptils base there, they're doing little experiments on them, on the little critters.
It says here, the original Pudding Lane site was paved over when Monument Street was built in the late 18th.
There you go, Monument. That's what the Monument's for, isn't it?
Yeah,
of course
Monument
it is.
Street.
Monument. That great big tall pole called Monument is a monument to the Fire of London.
Yeah.
There you go. Do you know what? Thinking back on this story now, the Visitation, right? There's this whole thing about the Miller, isn't there? Is he he's been taken over by, because there's a whole mind control thing going on in the story as well, which I never really quite gone with. I don't think.
Isn't it insane?
Way of controlling the villagers so that everybody kind of acts weird. So we got that aspect of it, of this story as well, haven't we? Villagers behaving strangely as per a whole bunch of, Doctor Who stories like the android invasion, Terror of the Zygons. Go on,
so I was just thinking about the Great Fire of London. That a small fire in the bakery set fire to so much of London.
Yes.
And that is, thinking about that is a crazy thought on how much of it got damaged.
I think it was particularly bad because the winds were really strong at the time. All those houses had all been built very close together. They're all packed in, and they're mostly made of wood. So all of that combined, wouldn't have really helped contain it. But
destroyed
of course, it kind of it sort of ended the plague as well, though, didn't it? If I remember.
Yeah.
So actually had some kind of benefit in destroying all those plague-ridden areas, kind of sterilising them to a degree. Obviously not pleasant at all, because hundreds of people would have died, I guess. But
well, it says here that the death toll was relatively small, although some people think it was bigger.
I suppose, because once it starts and people start realising that how virulent the fire is, they run, get out.
Yeah.
I suppose. I do think the Terileptil... Sorry, I'm sort of going back to the story. Weird, isn't it? The Terileptil costumes in this, they're very... I mean, the masks are good, I think, but in typical sort of 1980s Doctor Who style, they struggle with the lower half of the body.
Yeah, you can't move his arms very well, can he?
No, it's all kind of...
Yeah.
So the guy who played the chief Terileptil, Michael Melia, was quite well known in TV as well. He usually played like gangster types and everything else. And apparently he and Peter Davison were cracking lots of jokes together in the rehearsals for this story.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And they got on really well, and had a big laugh. And then when Michael Melia was wearing his Terileptil suit, apparently his performance changed completely and became much colder and much more icy. And apparently Davison was a bit freaked out by it the first time they had to work together in set. Yeah. Because it's like, rehearsals, we're all having a bit of a laugh, and now suddenly he's an absolute cold-hearted killer. So I thought that was quite nice. If that's actually true, I don't know. I had read it somewhere, I think.
I wonder if the Terileptils have appeared in anything else. Certainly not the show, but I wonder if they're on audio anyway.
They were They were referenced in a modern day story. Yeah, was it a Stephen Moffat story? Can't remember now. And in Saywood's novelizations of Revelation of the Daleks, I think Resurrection of the Daleks, they sort of appear in the background, or at least some of the backstory to them does. Here we go. Not again.
You maybe see them in the Pandorica opens.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Sort of. Possibly.
Uh-oh.
Would you like to see them again, do you think, given a modern day treatment?
Yeah. 12th Doctor blamed the Terileptils for the Great Fire of London in The Woman Who Lives. Yeah.
There you go. The Woman Who Lives, that's the one we were talking about, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't say if they've been any Big Finish. I'm sure they have been. Yeah.
I don't know, actually. I don't know if they have. Who knows? So much Big Finish out there these days, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I'm going to have to look into that.
He's going to look into it, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Feel free to do so as well.
And tweet us if you want
Tweet us, yeah.
Yeah.
All of that. All of the above.
Well, we will reconvene for part 3 and 4 of that and continue our commentary.
Continue watching it, yes. Yeah, and hopefully we'll stay more on topic as well.
Yeah, well, hopefully if you have listened and you enjoy the rambles, let us know.
Rambles.
If you don't,
let us know. Yeah.
And we'll stick to the plot. Yeah.
That'd be boring. Right. Who wants to do that, eh? Sticking to the plot, that's for numpties.
Right, thanks everyone. We will catch you next time on Corner to Corner.
Indeed. Take care. Bye for now.
Bye.